If you submit an XML sitemap to Google, Google will tell you what was the total number of URLs present in the XML sitemap, what is the total number of URLs that Google has indexed from that XML sitemap, and what are the amount or number of sitemaps that you've submitted to Google. You can submit multiple sitemaps to Google, XML sitemaps. We will discuss that later. This is an example of an XML sitemap. In our previous edition, we had discussed the importance of an HTML sitemap. Unlike an HTML sitemap, an XML sitemap can contain up to 500 URLs. In an HTML sitemap, you can only implement, or it's recommended that you only implement the primary pages of your website, not all. In an XML sitemap, you can submit every other URL that your website possesses. How do you structure an XML sitemap? You put in all your URLs first. You give it a date. So the next one, let's look at the first URL. Rio2016.fanaticssports.in is the homepage URL. It was last modified on 21st of Jan 2016. You have a time given to it. It has a monthly frequency. That means you're telling Google that you have to come and check this sitemap on a monthly basis. We are not going to change it in a month. It will only change after 31 days. So for one consecutive month, these are the URLs that my website has, and their content will remain the same. If you are changing your content on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, you need to change your frequency accordingly. The next URL is for a particular category. It has the same features, the date, time, and the period as to when the sitemap changes. What needs to be noticed here is a feature called priority. You need to prioritize your URLs and then submit to Google. Your website might have around 500 pages. Now all 500 pages might not be of a single priority. 300 pages can generate better business compared to the other 200 pages. So you want those 300 pages to be indexed faster and better by Google. What you do is that you structure your website structure your XML sitemap according to that priority. So first your home page comes in, then your important category pages come in. Your priority number cannot exceed 1. 1 is the foremost priority number that you can provide to a URL using an XML sitemap. Then you have 0.95, you can have 0.99, you can have 0.90, 0.85, all the way to 0.41. 1 being the best. So there are a lot of XML sitemaps that you can submit to Google, that you can create and configure. The first XML sitemap that we discussed here is only about your URLs, your main page URLs. The image sitemap will consist of images present in your website. So how do you configure it? It's the same thing. You use a schema markup. It's a kind of a coding feature. Let's look at the first URL or image that has been submitted. First, you need to list down the URL of the page where the images are present. Then you list down the images present within that URL. So LOC http example.com sample.html is your page whose images you want to index. Then you give an image command. You put in image number 1 that reads example.com/image.jpg. Your image will also have a URL. Then you put in the URL of your second image. If your page consists only 2 images, end that command there by using URL set. It's done. Then you move on to a next one. The video sitemaps will also tell you which pages contains which videos that you want to index. Again, let's look at how it's configured. Your landing page URL that consists all the videos. Then, when you have videos in your website, it's implemented in the form of a JPEG with a play button. You click on the video and then it starts playing. So, that JPEG URL or that image URL of that particular video needs to be mentioned. Then you describe your video. Your video will have a title, Reeling Sticks for Summer. Alki's, then the description, Alki shows you how to get perfectly done sticks every time. Then you put in the URL of that video file. If it has an external player, you put in that URL. I mean, if it has a YouTube, if it has a YouTube account, that particular video is placed in YouTube or Dailymotion, you can implement that, but that's not important. What's important again is the time of that video. How long is the video duration? And it comes in minutes. Then you have the expiration date of that particular video. You don't need to put in ratings, you don't need to put in counts. YouTube analytics will give you a separate amount of analytics that tells you what was where your videos that were played, how much views did that particular video get, was that particular video played completely or did users shut it down midway. So all that you get from YouTube analytics. What you need to place in video sitemaps is the landing page of that particular video, the JPEG of that particular video. It's every other video will be placed in your website. You have to click on the play button for that video to play. So before you click, it's embedded in a JPEG. It's an image format. So that needs to be there. The title and the description of that video, the URL of that video file, the duration of that video, the expiry date. These are the 5 to 6 most important things that you need to implement in your video sitemap. Next, we move on as to how you create the sitemaps. There is something called free XML sitemap generator. You can have your XML sitemap, you can have your HTML sitemap, and when you say XML sitemap, you can have it for a normal web image as well as a video. You need to submit your website URL. You need to assign the date as to when you're generating that particular sitemap. You need to place the priority so that when this sitemap is being configured, the sitemap generator on its own figures out which URL to place high and which URL to place low. And then you need to press on a create button. Your sitemaps will be generated automatically. Once your sitemaps are generated, you need to implement or upload it to the root of your website. What do we mean by root? So let's take a look at the first sitemap URL. Rio2016.fanaticssports.in is the homepage URL. /sitemap.xml. We have uploaded this XML sitemap to the root. It's a first level subdomain. Once it is uploaded to the root, you need to submit sitemap to Google using the Google Webmaster account. So I have something called add test sitemap. I click on sitemaps feature in Google Webmasters. There is something called add or test sitemap. I click on that and I submit my sitemap to Google. Once you've submitted your sitemap to Google, Google will tell you what was the total number of URLs that was submitted and what is the total number of URLs within that sitemap that Google could index successfully. There is another way that you can have your website indexed, or all your web pages indexed by Google. That is using a feature within Google Webmasters called Fetch as Google. You go to Google Webmasters, click on that, you are redirected to this particular page. Your domain name appears besides the field. You have this blank field of space that is there. Left to that, you have your domain or your website name coming in. If it's your home page, simply leave it blank, click on submit or fetch and render button. If you're using a responsive site, you need to tell Google for which device I want this URL to be indexed for. Is it desktop? Is it a mobile smartphone that's currently being used? If it's an upcoming mobile smartphone, and the language, coding language. For other URLs, just put in that URL minus the home page. So if you have something called etcases.com/case categories/financialmanagement.html, take out etcases.com since it's already present by default and submit the remaining part of the URL. Select the device you want to have it indexed for, submit it to Google. Google will immediately give you a feedback saying that the URL has been submitted to index. Robots.txt. Sometimes our websites contain confidential information which we wouldn't want to disclose openly. For big financial or corporate houses, there's something called annual general meetings, or a disclosure as to what the company profits for a quarter or a year was. You wouldn't want those content to be displayed openly for users to read or go through. Those content are only meant for stakeholders within the company. Hence, you can tell Google not to index those kind of URLs. So how do you do that? There is a txt file, text file called robots, where you can, using a particular command saying disallow, that particular file name, you can tell Google that these are the files that I wouldn't want to be indexed or be shown up in search results. Google Webmasters gives you an update on your complete website performance as to first the health, what are the URLs, from desktop or smartphone or feature phone. A desktop is a desktop and a laptop, a smartphone is an Android, a feature phone would be a BlackBerry or something. Feature phones are non-existent as of now. So within desktop, will they be indexing what are the URLs they could not identify in your website that you've submitted to Google. Once you've submitted to Google, you will tell Google that there are 500 or 600 URLs or 1000 URLs. If you have 1000 URLs in a website, you can submit 2 XML sitemaps. So Google will index them and tell you that out of the URLs that you submitted, we couldn't identify or find this much pages for desktop, for mobile, and for other phones.